Nillumbik is a magical shire 30 minutes northeast of Melbourne City. Many wonderful people are drawn to the shire's natural and unique beauty. The shire sits 30 kilometres south of Kinglake National Park and 40 kilometres northwest of the Dandenong Ranges. Water bodies are a significant feature of the Nillumbik Shire, including the mighty Yarra River and ephemeral wetlands where water comes and goes as the seasons change. Dry forests are common in Nillumbik, as are riparian zones around the shire's many creeks. Many of the ecosystems in Nillumbik are defined by eucalypts which shed bark to aid in fire, have thick leaves to survive in warm climates, and provide copious amounts of carbohydrates for insects, mammals and birds. Let's have a look at some of the fascinating wildlife that call Nillumbik home. It is reported that there are over 1,500 native bee species in Australia. Remarkable. Many of them can be found in Nillumbik. Native Australian bees look and behave a little differently than the introduced honeybee, simply because they need different traits and skill sets to form special relationships with Australian indigenous plants. These red abdomen bees are part of the Lasioglossum genus. Bees in this genus have short tongues, perfect for accessing pollen and nectar from Nillumbik's non-tubular wildflowers. Another group of bees found in Nillumbik is the Lipotriches genus. Their furry bodies are excellent for removing and storing large quantities of pollen. The females take the pollen back to solitary burrows. When larvae pupate into adult bees, they have a rich source of protein to give them a great start to life. Bees see a different range of light wavelengths. They can pick out ultraviolet colours, meaning blue, dark pink and purple flowers are easy for bees to see from afar. They can also see yellow, but unlike birds cannot see red. Makes sense that a whole host of indigenous wildflowers are somewhat blue or yellow. This native bee is harvesting pollen from the yellow flower head of a yam daisy. Yam daisy tubers were an important food source for the Wurundjeri people. By collecting and transporting pollen to other yam daisies, native bees help continue the next generation of wildflower food sources. This bee-looking insect is actually a hoverfly. The black and yellow stripes resemble a bee's abdomen in an attempt to keep predators at bay. Hoverflies love to sip nectar from yellow and blue indigenous wildflowers. In the height of spring and early summer, they are the most prolific pollinator in Nillumbik reserves. Hoverfly larvae, on the other hand, eat other bugs. Therefore, they are an excellent predator to have around your home garden to control aphids and whitefly. Hoverflies are not the only insects to mimic the shape and colour of bees. Bee flies and droneflies also utilise this tactic to confuse potential predators. Whilst not as prolific as their cousins the hoverfly, bee flies and droneflies also pollinate wildflowers in Nillumbik. In fact, flies in general, including blowflies and marchflies, are great pollinators of indigenous plants and some food sources. Trigger plants have a special relationship with indigenous bees. If the bee is the right size, it sets off a trigger arm beneath the petals, which is loaded with pollen. Sprayed with pollen, the bee is free to visit another trigger plant. When landing on another flower head, the reed bee pollinates the plant and receives another dousing of pollen. Bang! Got him! During the height of summer, most terrestrial wildflowers are no longer flowering. Purple loosestrife, which can handle waterlogged soils, receives enough hydration to handle long and hot summer days. Growing on the edges of Hurstbridge wetlands, purple loosestrife feeds many native Nillumbik insects. This beautiful insect is the checkered cuckoo bee. Nectar and pollen provide the energy it needs to fly around in search of solitary blue-banded bee homes. Once a home has been found, it sneaks its larvae into the nest. Eventually, the cuckoo bee pupates and feasts on the food provisions that were intended for the blue-banded bee larvae. Blue-banded bees, like many other insects, need to clean their antennae. These bodily structures help sense olfactory cues and are also used as a touch mechanism to sense objects close by. If antennae get dirty, their sensory ability becomes compromised. For the same reason, bees also need to clean sensory hairs that are located across most of their body. On this beautiful summer's day, blue-banded bees were dipping their tongue into flower heads to access nectar. During this process, they indirectly brush up against purple loosestrife pollen sacs. Pollen on the outside of the sacs then stick to the bees' bodily hairs. Some plants, however, store pollen on the inside of anther sacs. This requires bees to perform a special process called buzz pollination to access the pollen. By vibrating their thorax muscles, their head is propelled up and down in a head-banging action, eventually dislodging the pollen. Blue-banded and other buzz-pollinating native bees are vital to Nillumbik's forest ecology, as there are many terrestrial wildflowers which store their pollen in this way. To attract native insects to your property, you need more than just food for them. Insect motels complement a garden full of indigenous plants by providing solitary homes where native bees and native wasps can seek shelter and a place to lay their larvae while they develop into adults. After laying their young in a hole, they plug their home with a solution. Some species use clay, while others, such as the leafcutter bee, use a munched up leaf substance. Butterflies will sip nectar from a range of different coloured flowers. However, observations suggest they are especially drawn to white and yellow flowers. In late spring, when many wildflowers have stopped flowering, Xantheria minor specimens can become an important food source for indigenous butterflies such as this common brown butterfly. Painted lady butterflies also enjoy the Xantheria blooms, as do a range of skipper butterflies and the yellow admiral butterfly as well. During January and February, you may be lucky enough to see multiple butterfly species feeding on the same plant. Imperial blue butterflies have strands and dots at the back of their wings to mimic a butterfly's face. If a predator tears part of their back wings off, they are often still capable of flying. The imperial butterfly has a unique relationship with ants. In return for feasting on a honeydew substance that the caterpillars excrete, ants will attempt to protect them from predatory insects and birds. During January and February, keep your eyes peeled for the fiery and bright copper butterfly species in Nillumbik. They like to feed on the flowers of sweet Bacteria. This butterfly is called the bright copper. Depending on the butterfly's position in relation to the sun's rays, their wings may have a slightly purple or brown tinge to the mostly dominant orange colour of their front and hind wings. Low-lying vegetation such as lamandra leaf blades and red anther wallaby grass stalks provide excellent habitat for copper butterflies to soak up the sun's rays and rest between daily activities such as searching for a mate and laying eggs. The brown butterfly group has many species that can be spotted in the Nillumbik Shire. This species is called the ringed zenica. Adults often fly close to the ground and rest on leaf litter. This allows the keen observer an opportunity to see the owl-like pattern on the hind wings. One of the last brown butterflies in Nillumbik to emerge in summer and early winter is the Banks brown. The adults may be spotted in gully lines, dancing around each other as they look for a mate, or basking in the dappled sunshine. On rare occasions, migrant butterflies may enter the Nillumbik Shire. This tailed emperor specimen was sighted in March 2022. It took up residence in the Smith's Gully Reserve. Whilst flying, the tailed emperor looks very similar to the male imperial Jezebel. However, it can be distinguished in flight by its rapid flying speed. When resting, tailed strands on the hind wings and orange and brown patterns contrasting with patches of white make this butterfly difficult to spot. Australia has many species of beetles. Some of the larger and most beautiful are the Shire beetles. Like most adult insects, they feed upon nectar and pollen. As a result, these beetles become an important pollinator of shrubs within Nillumbik. A great time to sight the spotted Shire beetle is when sweet Bacteria is flowering en masse during summer. This is when spotted Shire beetles are feeding during the day and actively searching for a mate. Fiddler beetles are another type of Shire beetle. They get their name because of the bright patterns on their wing casing resembling the shape of a violin. As larvae, the beetles feed on rotten wood in an old log or under the soil surface. It is only once they are pupated into adults that they begin to feed on flowers. Sugar ants are common in forests around Nillumbik. Collectively, there are around 100 sugar ant species in Australia. They are generalist predators and scavengers, feeding on insects, seeds, and sugary substances such as honeydew. During spring, a young queen will come out of the nest and fly away in search of a mate. Once mating in mid-air, she will find a suitable spot to start a new colony. Sugar ants are an integral part of an ecosystem. For one, they provide a food source for echidnas and birds. Secondly, they help distribute seeds to other parts of a forest where it is conducive to the seeds sprouting. Golden tail ants are fairly common in Nillumbik forests. The best time to catch them is in early summer. During this period, you may catch them attending to their nest or exchanging information by rubbing their antennae with other individuals living in the same nest. Ants are considered ecosystem engineers. The best way they manipulate the environment is by shifting soil and making tunnels for nutrients to travel lower down into the soil profile. But they also change the environment by feeding on organic matter such as this cockroach. By breaking down the exoskeleton, they are helping to release minerals into the soil which will help plant growth. The willow herb day moth is one of Nillumbik's beautiful day-flying moths. It has up to a 4 cm wingspan and orange and black bands on the underside of its abdomen. In ephemeral riparian areas and around council's stormwater treatment ponds, this moth can be seen feeding on wetland plants such as purple loosestrife and lycopis. As a result, it becomes an important pollinator of some wetland plants in late summer. Flower wasps are important pollinators of Nillumbik plants, including some rare orchids. The male pictured here has the female attached to his abdomen. In some species, the male will carry the female to flowers where she can feed. Females cannot fly and are instead designed to dig through the soil where they find and parasitize beetles and other insects to inject their larvae into. The larvae then feed on the parasitized insect, eventually pupating into adults. Some flower wasps can be dark in colour, whilst others have a metallic sheen to their exoskeleton. The lowland copperhead is a beautiful looking snake. The name comes from the copper tinge to some of their bodily scales. Unlike tiger snakes, if they feel threatened, Their tactic is to lie still and blend in with the surrounding scrub. When the weather is warm enough, lowland copperheads will actively hunt small reptiles, frogs and insects. Occasionally, they will flatten out their head and neck region when sliding through the forest understory. When spotting this behaviour, it is plainly obvious how robustly built they are. Lowland copperheads like to hang around water bodies. This way, they have regular access to drinking water and prey items such as frogs and this large specimen, the water skink. Once finishing a hearty reptile meal, they slither around looking for a fallen log or a tussock grass to hide under. Like most other snakes, the small-eyed snake has a forked tongue. This organ is used to capture scent particles in the air. These particles provide information about the environment the snake is interacting with. Once interpreted by the snake's brain, it can determine where to move, what to avoid, where to shelter, and when to start hunting prey. The small-eyed snake prefers to hunt at night time, hoping to capture sleeping reptiles. They will feed during the daytime though, attempting to find active lizards and other small snakes to feast upon. The Jackie lizard, pictured here on the eucalypt trunk, can easily blend in with its surroundings. They employ the sit and wait foraging strategy. Unsuspecting insects wandering close by are quickly pounced upon. Male Jackie lizards are often competing with each other. If you are to see a specimen conducting a press up, it is said to signify aggressive behaviour, while slow arm waves are a submissive function displayed by subordinate males. To the local Wurundjeri people, this eagle species is called Bunjil. Bunjil is their spiritual leader and creator of the land they walk on. Whilst Bunjil will soar along coastlines and alpine regions, it prefers to live in open woodlands where it can hunt for mammals, skinks and small birds. It also has one of the largest animal wingspans in the world, measuring over 2 meters in length. Wedgies build the bulk of their nests from large sticks and use soft leaves to layer the top. As these nests are often used for more than 1 year, adults refine and add sticks over time. At its most impressive, these nests may weigh up to 400 kg and be 3 meters deep. Another one of Nillumbik's large predators is the powerful owl. The male owl pictured here is a ferocious predator, eating up to 250 possums a year. During the breeding season, the male will catch the possum, eating only the head. The next day it will deliver the remaining body parts to the female and the young in their tree hollow. It is said that eucalypt trees need to be around 200 years old to contain hollows large enough for the powerful owl. A nighttime bird you are more likely to encounter within Nillumbik is the tawny frogmouth. Unlike the powerful owl, the frogmouth prefers to feed on nocturnal insects. There are 2 species of blue-tongue lizards found in Nillumbik, the blotched blue-tongue and the common blue-tongue. Both species scourge the forest and grassland floor for all types of insects. Adult blue tongues can weigh the best part of half a kg, meaning they provide a significant meal for predators such as the laughing kookaburra. After tenderizing their catch, they swallow the entire animal down their throat. The azure kingfisher hunts small fish in creeks and rivers around Nillumbik. The bobbing of its head up and down helps gauge the distance and angle of the potential food source. Another successful catch for the day. The sacred kingfisher, on the other hand, is mostly observed eating insects in Nillumbik. It waits outside its nesting hollow looking for potential predators. When the coast is clear, it delivers a tasty treat to its newborn fledgling. During the breeding season, both the male and female pardalotes take turns stripping bark off eucalypt species. Once their beaks are full, they return to their underground home to line their nests. The strips will help keep their eggs nice and warm. Keep an eye out for the beautiful colours and configurations of the spotted pardalote. It truly is one of Nillumbik's most colourful and unique birds. The cry of wood ducks in August is synonymous with early spring beginning in Nillumbik. Wood duck pairs which mate for life rely on hollows to provide safe nesting sites. This pair have found the perfect hollow in a manna gum situated along the Diamond Creek. Clutch size can be up to 10 eggs, and the young are born with waterproof down, allowing them to enter the water almost straight away. Like the Australian wood duck, the sulphur-crested cockatoo is also monogamous. Once the female has accepted the male's advances, they begin to preen each other. The next step is to find an appropriate hollow for nesting. Birds like to put the final touches on their residence, scraping back and removing sharp edges around hollows. Now they can fly in and hang out without getting cut. Nillumbik is one of the best places to see colourful parrots, rosellas and lorikeets. Within the Nillumbik Shire, you can often spot king parrots and the eastern rosella. In this bushy greenwood shire, there are many indigenous flowers and gum nuts for them to feed upon and hollows for their nesting sites. In February, manna gums may flower en masse as they did in 2021. Laden with flowers, the manna gums along the Diamond Creek drew in big groups of hungry musk lorikeets. Tree violet berries are also on the menu from late February through to April. It seems Hurstbridge provides a magnificent banquet for the musk lorikeets. Rainbow lorikeets are also easily spotted at certain times of the year, feeding on flowering gum trees. And here is a crimson rosella, aiming to prise seeds out of a gum tree in Cottlesbridge. Coloured feather patterns are not limited to parrots though. Here is a male scarlet robin with a beautiful scarlet chest. The male is calling to a female. Female birds generally look quite drab in comparison. This is because it is the males that pursue them. A brighter coloured male could pass on better genes for their offspring's survival. Another small bird with a brightly coloured chest that calls Nillumbik home is the mistletoe bird. Their beautiful call can be heard in the riparian area along the Diamond Creek in summer. Much like the flycatchers in Nillumbik, their wings have a blue sheen. Lyrebirds are world famous for their ability to mimic other bird sounds within Australia. They can imitate a whole range of birds, including Nillumbik favourites, the laughing kookaburra, gang cockatoos and butcherbirds. A less renowned feature of the lyrebird is its spectacular tail. During courtship, the male holds its tail in a horizontal fashion while vibrating it up and down. Whilst they are not common in Nillumbik, you may hear one calling from the wetter zones found in the Shire. Lyrebirds prefer wet gullies, where there is more vegetation cover and friable soil to dig for insects. The grey fantail is a fantastic flyer, changing direction on a dime to catch insects in mid-air. In early summer, the adults take it in turns to feed their chicks and to sit on the nest. The nest is a beautiful construction consisting of grass that is held together with spiderweb. The grey colour of the nest makes it difficult for predators to pick out amongst vegetation. As one adult finishes her duties, the other adult arrives back at the nest with a tasty treat. The beautiful shiny bluey black feathers of flycatchers are magnificent, as is the flickering motion when they move their tail. These birds are also excellent hunters. During breeding season, they need to catch many insects to provide sustenance for their daily activities and to feed to their young. Some insectivore birds also use hollows to shelter from inclement weather and to raise their young. This tree creeper has stripped some bark material off with its beak and is now entering the hollow to make some improvements to the nest. Now it's time to creep up a tree and look for insects in between bark grooves. Nillumbik is home to numerous species of honeyeater birds. Honeyeaters have a brush-tipped tongue which they flicker back and forth at a rapid rate to soak up large amounts of nectar. Many honeyeaters take advantage of the seasonal flowering patterns of indigenous Nillumbik plants. In winter, flowering ironbarks may be visited by a mixed flock of honeyeaters, which includes the crescent and white-naped honeyeater. If you are lucky, you may also spot a tufted honeyeater. These Xantheria minor specimens flower in spring. Whilst insects seem to be the most common animals visiting these plants, yellow-faced honeyeaters will also visit these plants. With all this flower visitation, honeyeaters become an important group of pollinators for some Nillumbik plants. When it comes to fantastic bird traits, the eastern spinebill is right up there. Its feathers are donned with wonderful colours and patterns, and the fast and varied sounds of its call ring through the Nillumbik bush. It can feed up high on drooping mistletoe, catch insects in the mid-story, and even perch down low to access tubular flowers. It's in the Nillumbik winter that their slender and curved beak allows access to nectar within the tubular flowers of Epacris impressa. They move from one Epacris to another, slurping up nectar with their brushed tongue. Coria species such as Coria reflexa and Coria glabra are also on the menu. The white-winged chough is a fascinating bird species for a number of reasons. They are excellent nest builders, using a combination of mud and plant material to create a bowl-like nest. Due to the durability of this mud brick-like material, nests can sometimes be refurbished and used over several years. Adults and non-breeding helpers work together to create these nests. However, it has been reported that adults do most of the work. Unlike many other bird species, non-breeding helpers will also contribute to looking after young chicks who are not capable of leaving the nest. This may entail incubating eggs or bringing food back to the nest. Choughs usually eat insects, which they obtain through foraging amongst leaf litter and the soil surface. However, they will also eat seeds. Whistler birds are regularly heard calling during summer in Nillumbik. The two species you are most likely to hear are the rufous and golden whistler. As the name suggests, the male rufous whistler has a rufous coloured chest, and the male golden whistler has a yellow coloured chest. Females of both species do not exhibit these colorations. An often overlooked feature of the whistler birds is their fantastic hunting skills. The golden whistler pictured here has caught a sizable centipede. It is banging it against eucalypt branches to make sure it is no longer alive before it begins to ingest. Like the grey fantail and whistler birds, many small birds in Nillumbik will predominantly eat insects and are often referred to as insectivores. Scrub wrens can be found in understory growth within forests and riparian zones, searching for insect larvae and adult beetles. Thornbills will pick off insects feeding on flowering acacias, and cuckoos such as the shining bronze cuckoo will feed on a great diversity of insects in late winter. Nillumbik has many other beautiful bird species. like the fantail cuckoo. Birds with big bills that eat both berries and insects, like this carawong. And ground-dwelling birds, like the painted button quail and the Bayesian thrush. Just like all other native animals in Nillumbik, the Bayesian thrush needs natural habitats to source food, find homes, and to seek shelter. Nillumbik is home to fascinating mammals. This short-beaked echidna is an egg-laying mammal, which you may well encounter in the warmer months in Nillumbik. Although it often feeds at night and sleeps during the day, you may see it during daylight hours wandering around the Nillumbik bush searching for ants or termites. It uses its powerful and long beak and backwards facing feet to turn over soil. Its beak can also prise logs apart. Once ants are found, it slurps them up with its long sticky tongue. During winter, when the weather is cold and food sources are a little scarce, the short-beaked echidna will hibernate in a burrow. The swamp wallaby, unlike their cousin the eastern grey kangaroo, are usually sighted on their own. Patches of orangey-brown fur around the face, underbelly and back are usually enough to distinguish this wallaby species. They have excellent hearing thanks to large ears which can independently move in all directions. Whilst they will nibble on grass, they prefer to feast on shrubs. Even prickly plants such as this Acacia paradoxa are on the menu, as are young saplings. If wandering around the Yarra River or the Diamond Creek, you may be fortunate enough to see a resting platypus on the surface of the water during the day, just before it dives under in search of more food. The brush-tailed phascogale is an iconic mammal in the Nillumbik Shire, characterised by a bushy tail and long snout. They are arboreal hunters which usually feed on insects but will also sip nectar from flowering eucalypts. Their homes may be in tree hollows, under flaking bark, or in human dwellings. One of the small marsupial animals that call Nillumbik home is the slender-tailed dunnart. They mostly feed on insects such as grasshoppers and beetles and use tussock-forming grasses as cover and as bedding material. Unfortunately, overgrazing has meant a reduction in tussock cover, making it easier for feral animals such as foxes and cats to predate on the dunnarts. In spring, right through to midsummer, you can see spectacular displays of indigenous wildflowers in Nillumbik. In particular, people are drawn to the fantastic orchid species that call Nillumbik home. Many of the wildflowers have edible tubers. These tubers were an important food source for the First Nation clans that lived and passed through the Nillumbik area. Nillumbik also has many fantastic indigenous daisy species. As with all wildflowers in Nillumbik, they provide food, resting spots, and homes for many important arthropods. In order to protect the beautiful and natural Nillumbik environment, a helping hand is often in order. Enclosures help protect bushland from herbaceous pests. The height of the fence will depend on what predators you are trying to keep out. Sometimes special and rare plants need further protection. Cages can be placed over the top to help prevent birds feasting on the plants. Cages can be specifically made or sourced from a recycle shop. They can be very effective at allowing herbaceous plants to go to seed. Whenever possible, try to consider the needs of native fauna in the landscape, even when it comes to public infrastructure. Stormwater retention ponds with a healthy riparian zone and connection to larger ecosystem bodies can act as good habitat for a range of birds, frogs, insects, and reptiles. Understanding the behaviour of animals is important to determine what is missing from a landscape. A limiting factor for some small mammals and birds is tree hollows. Habitat boxes can be attached to trees if appropriate hollows are missing from an area. Habitat boxes are not as good as hollows. Therefore, trees should be protected so as more hollows will form over time. Equally, having an idea of what pests and native wildlife call Nillumbik home is vital. Increasingly, motion cameras are being utilised to help complement an ecological survey. Weeds can be a substantial obstacle to ecological health. They compete with indigenous plants, ultimately reducing habitat quality for Nillumbik's native fauna species. Hand weeding is a great way to reduce understory weedy grass loads. For some grasses, the assistance of a tool may be required, whilst for other weeds they can be plucked with your hand. For shrubs and trees, ring barking may be the best option. It means less work as the trees don't need to be removed, and they may provide structural habitat whilst indigenous plants are regenerating. Propagating indigenous plants is an essential tool to regenerate disturbed habitats on public and private land. Between 2016 and 2019, 30,000 plants were purchased or gifted from the Stringy Bark Nursery to the Nillumbik Shire. They are a wonderful example of how the natural world and community can help each other. Another reason to protect ecological health is so we continue to have amazing wildlife to be inspired by. Wildlife around Nillumbik has been important to inspire creative pursuits for decades. These beautiful mosaic pieces were crafted by Deb Oliver. And this beautiful pottery piece depicting a blue-banded bee is by Fiona Mitchell. Fiona also painted this brush-tailed phascogale.
Yellow box, Rosella sip nectar from your beautiful flowers. Yellow box, owls peer down from your stag tower. Yellow box, brown, yellow and grey bark. Yellow box, singing from your branches the magpie lark. Habitat given is the eucalyptus, standing tall and indigenous, looking pretty through the mist in every story another twist.